Hi, my name is Selma Cordero. It's been a while since I recorded a recipe, but today I'm taking the opportunity to do some baking and I'm gonna do a recipe for almond creamer cupcakes. So this recipe starts with half a cup of butter and I just nuke it in the microwave for like 25 seconds. 1 cup of sugar. So let me take that and I'm just gonna get that mixed. And while that is mixing, I'm also gonna look for 2 eggs and I'm gonna get them ready. Here's the 2 eggs, and it has 1.5 teaspoons of vanilla extract. A quarter of a teaspoon of almond extract as an optional ingredient, but I love almonds, so I'm just gonna add it as well. And now let's begin with the dry ingredients. So is 1.5 cup of flour, and you want to mix the dry ingredients in a separate container first before you put it to the wet ingredients, just to be sure that you're mixing the baking soda, the salt, and all those ingredients together well. Okay, so we say it's 1.5 teaspoon of baking powder, and we have a quarter of salt. Okay, so those are your dry ingredients. So we are going to mix them well. And we're going to turn the machine on and start putting those in the machine. It also calls for half a cup of almond creamer. Okay, you don't want to overmix your batter, so it looks nicely done right now. And now we can proceed to put the batter in the cupcakes. It says that fills 12 cupcakes. I'm using some of these very cool cupcakes holders that don't need the base to keep straight. It's kind of the first time I use them, so I'm crossing my fingers that they work well. I tend to use the measuring cup to fill them up because that way it's kind of easier to get them in there. I'm going to start with getting them half full. Let's see. I had just preheated the oven for around 350 degrees, and I used 7 of these large cupcakes. As you can see, they're larger than your typical cupcake. So I took 7 of them, and I filled them up at 2/3 of the size of a cup. So they're going to bake for around 16 to 19 minutes. And so right in the middle of the oven, and then we test them with a toothpick when the time is done. While the cupcakes are baking, I'm going to take the opportunity to work on my frosting. And I found a caramel frosting made with almond creamer as well. So it calls for 4 tablespoons of unsalted butter. And again, I'm going to use my vegan butter. And so we just need 4. So it's just about half of it. Half a cup of light brown sugar. And it says that has to be halved. So we're going to be sure that it's It's packed in there. A quarter of almond creamer. I have a quarter here. And a teaspoon of vanilla. So we're going to start with melting the butter over medium heat. To add the brown sugar and stir until it's fully combined and let it bubble for about 2 minutes until it dissolves and the sugar builds up kind of that caramel flavor. So let's see. When you make caramel, be sure you continue the motion of moving it. You don't want it to go burn. My timer expired. So the next step is to slowly pour the almond creamer and whisk it for 2 minutes until it's well incorporated. And then it's time to add the creamer. So you have to incorporate it slowly. So at this point, I guess we turn it off. And it did create a beautiful color. Now it truly looks like caramel. Oh, this looks beautiful. Mm-hmm. 1 teaspoon of vanilla. Okay, so it says to let it cool for about 10 to 15 minutes. Let me show you. I hope I can get close enough to the camera to show you what it looks like. But let's see. You see that? It's very caramel looking color and it smells fantastic. So while it's cooling down, the next step will be to transfer it to the mix bowl. It says that if we wanted to make a frosting that is spreadable, to use 2 cups, which is what I want. I want to have the frosting to be able to spread. And if we want, we can add a pinch of salt if we want to get the deeper caramel note. So I think I'm going to do that. So the 60 minutes timer just ended. I'm going to check the cupcakes because it says 16 to 19 minutes. So I just checked the cupcakes and they're not done because my cupcakes are bigger. So I'm assuming that probably needs another 5 minutes. So I'm just going to leave them alone. I'm going to keep working with my frosting. About 2 cups of shift powdered sugar. So I'm using vanilla powdered sugar. And I have my shifter here ready to go. When you talk to frosting, we can be a little bit less precise because you can hold on to put in the powdered sugar until you feel that your consistency is the way you want it. So let's be sure this is nice and fluffy. Okay, so we are going to pass the caramel here. Let's start adding this a little bit at a time. And while that is going, I'm going to go check my cupcakes. 1/8 of a teaspoon, so I'm going for it. It's very, very rich. So let me show you what it looks like. So my cupcakes are certainly ready. You can see they grew all the way to the top. I would say for me it was about 25 minutes just because these cupcakes are much bigger than a traditional cupcake. So it all depends on your size. I'm going to let them cool down before I apply the frosting, and then we're good to go. I just finished putting the frosting on the cake, on the cupcakes, and look how beautiful they look. I actually got 7, but happened to eat one of them. Just couldn't wait for the frosting. The batter is fantastic, and the frosting is delicious. So I'm hoping that when you eat them together, you love them as much as me. Dairy-free almond cupcakes with caramel frosting. I hope you do.